Hi, my name is Thian and I'm from TAS grade 9. I'm going to explain about the sovereignty of God's law. So firstly, I want to explain how I understand about sovereignty. Sovereignty means like a full control, authority or power. So the question is like the power of God's law. If I'm not wrong, and let's dive in. Laws are made to bring peace for less problems and violence. When we look at a country's law, most of them are made to prevent bad things. Though our human law often need changes and updates because it's not perfect, not the best. But God's law absolutely don't need changes because they are perfect. The sovereignty of God's law means that God's law and commands hold ultimate authority over all creation. In the scripture, we can see that God is the ultimate lawgiver above all creation. Even human laws are said to operate under God's law. In Romans chapter 13, verse 1 to 2, it said, "There is no authority except that which God has established." It means like there couldn't be any command or law authority over God's law. In Acts chapter 5, verse 29, but Peter and the other apostles answered and said, "We ought to obey God rather than man." So this verse tells us that God, we should obey to God rather than man. God's law is the ultimate standard above human. God's law is the highest among all laws. And in Psalm chapter 119, verse 105, it said, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." It tells us that God's law guides believer in daily decisions, shining light in the dark or uncertain. So if we look at in Romans chapter 7 verse 7, what shall we say then? Is the law sin? Certainly not. On the contrary, I would not have known sin except through the law. For I would not have known covetousness unless the law had said, "You shall not covet." And Romans chapter 3 verse 20, therefore, by the deeds of the law, no flesh will be justified in his sight, for by the law is the knowledge of sin. So both in Romans chapter 7 verse 7 and Romans chapter 3 verse 20, we can clearly see that the law acts as a mirror, revealing sins. And what we do wrong, it exposes our failures and the need for mercy. God's law reflects His character, holiness, justice, and love. God's law defines boundaries for righteous living, clarifying right and the wrong objective, unchanging terms. God's law has every right to command and judge actions. God's law is not just for believers or Christians, it is for all human beings. Thank you.